Oh, well, it's over. It's done for another year. Oh, holy shit. What a year it was. Let's get into it. Oh, where to start? First of all, thank you absolutely everybody who is interacting with the content, especially on TikTok and YouTube. Sorry, I've got a bit of a cold. I've got the post-download flu right now, and it's hitting me hard. So thank you so much for everyone who has been interacting with all the content on TikTok and YouTube, with the overheards hitting over 20k, which is amazing. The old ones from last year hitting over 50k. Again, it's fantastic. YouTube hitting over 500 views per video, which I never thought in a day and age 500 people want to watch it, let alone 10. So thank you so much for everyone who has interacted with all that content. That really means a lot to me, and it means I'm doing something right, which is great. So I'm going to continue doing it. Comment and let me know your overheads as well. Let me know your thoughts. Please interact more. I will get to them. I try and interact with absolutely everybody who comments, and if you have overheads as well, please do put them on the TikToks, and I'm going to go through them. I'm going to collate a load of overheads, and we're going to do a big group thing of it. But for now, we're just going to do me on a quick fire of what went on this year at Download 2024. Or Download 21, because the years are different to however many downloads there have been, which is super confusing. But anyway, moving on. Download, how was it? Right, if I'm going to describe Download this year in one word, it's brown. So usually people joke about Download being drownload, brownload, dampload. You know, it's kind of in that time of the summer where it usually gets wet. This year was particularly wet, and it showed in the mud. The Daily Mail wrote about it. Everyone wrote about it. The TikToks wrote about it. You know, it was brown. It was very, very brown. That being said, though, it wasn't as bad as I expected. I think with the village being where it was, because they put the village where it was in anticipation for the last 2 years that it was going to be wet. And then when it is wet, the village then becomes a safe haven for people, and it's great for accessibility. So the village where it was did its job this year. So that makes sense. Throughout all the campsites and stuff, it did get quite brown, especially in the dip in Red. Red was like on a hill that kind of did a dip in the middle. Anybody who was in that dip was just somehow washed out. Toilets were like, there was more brown on the floor than in the toilets. But that being said, it was easy. If you were prepared for it, which most people were, it was actually okay. If you had some cover, if you bought wellies. So getting into actually Download itself, it wasn't as bad as I expected. So the lineup, everyone sort of looked at the lineup as the most, not the worst, but people commented it saying it was possibly the weakest Download. However, it wasn't as bad as I expected. So I'm going to get into it in a bit, but it was really it was actually very good. Like, I expected it to be, there would be lots of low points in the day where there wasn't much going on, but there was always someone to see. For me, that was really important, that I was able to move between stages, to see someone I knew was good, or discover someone who I wanted to see. And there was no bad performances by anybody. It was strictly just, it was a very good Download in that respect. If the weather was any different, I think it would have been one of the tops. That being said, though, I kind of stuck my foot in it. I kind of mentioned in a previous video about the Download curse, and that there is no such thing. There's no such thing as a Download curse.
There's no such thing as a Download curse.
There's no such thing as a Download curse. However, Download this year was not just brown, but cursed brown. Like, the weather was bad, bands were dropping out due to illness, due to the Free Palestine movement. There was some tech issues, but not just that. There was bands feuding with each other. It was very much a cursed sort of year, which was very interesting because I mentioned there's no such thing as a curse, and all of a sudden there is one. Not my fault. It wasn't my fault. I'm holding my hands up. It's not my fault. When I saw Baby Metal, obviously the stoppage happened due to the weather. Yeah, it was very disappointing. But again, these sort of things can't be helped. You know, when Electric Callboy dropped out on the Sunday due to illness, it was pretty upsetting. It was a Marmite year, but it wasn't as bad as I expected. However, there was one issue with, I think I'll get into the elephants in the room in a bit. There was a bout of food poisoning. Now, I don't know how real this is. I've not done any research into it, but people said on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, that people were getting food poisoning. I think it came up on the Facebook group as well. There's lots of Download Facebook groups. Someone mentioned they had to leave site because they have food poisoning. Now, I don't know how much this is a true fact or not. I really don't know. If anybody got food poisoning from one of the vendors, then I'm pretty sure that vendor would be immediately shut down if it was reported. And I think the vendor in question people were mentioning was Yorkie Puds, which is one of the most famous download vendors. They have a lot of vendors. They have a vendor in the village and they have a few vendors in the arena. It used to be quite a staple, which everyone gets a Yorkie Pud. Last year, I got a Yorkie Pud and I was like dumping out my arse and I just needed to like immediately evacuate myself. But it acted with me wrong. I never went there again. But people went there and they said that exactly the same happened. And in the situation that they were in with the weather and the fact that the toilets were fucking mental this year because of the weather and because there was a distinct lack of them in areas, that it became an issue. Then I think that I would usually think that vendor would be shut down, but the vendor was still open. So I don't know what went on there, but apparently there was about food poisoning. I'm not going to comment on people's medical situations or whatever, but what I would say is that because of the situation that we were in with the weather, there's a lot of mud going around and some of that mud is quite stagnant and a lot of that water was quite stagnant. Washing hands, eating with dirty hands, you've got to kind of keep an eye on that. It could have been part of the reason. Who knows? I don't know myself. I don't want to comment too hard, but there was apparently a big bout of food poisoning. So saying that, and we've kind of rolled on from, it was a good year, but it was still like had its issues as downloaders every year. Are going to run into what's called, we're going to do 3 elephants in the room. Brush over the weather. Let's brush over the brown bit. Let's brush over all the mud. Let's look at the 3 things that I think were also standout problems this year. Or elephants in the room, we're going to call them. First one, which has been an issue quite a few years, is third stage, and is it still fit for purpose at download? So I have a big problem with third stage, purely because it is big enough, but not big enough for the bands that are on it. We had the problem with Electric Callboy last year. It was the stupidest idea to put Electric Callboy with a humongous sold out audience into that tiny space. Whether they requested it or not, that tent was not fit for purpose. That tent is just as big, if not slightly smaller, than the doghouse in the village. And it was the same this year with Busted. Busted was hard to get into. Wheatus was super hard to get into. Even when I was taking a bit of a break, I saw Billy Talent from a distance. I sat on top of the cocktail bar bridge area, which they had like a little terrace, which was kind of cool. Sat up there on the cocktail, and I could see Billy Talent. And there was people still around the outside. It was the same with the Used, I think. There was still people like balled around the outside. It's just like, when is it going to get to the point when we think differently about third stage? I don't know whether it's because it is a tent and it's got to be a tent because it's so close to second and main, or they've got to think differently about how they program it, because I know they can't anticipate how many people are going to watch one band at one time, but it's happened now quite regularly and it can get quite dangerous. So with that, and talk about safety and stuff, we're going to get on to security. So security had a massive thing with hold-ups and just silly things happening. The biggest upset for me this year was I wanted to see Hanabi. I really wanted to see them, and I thought it'd be an excellent show to see. First off, what a way to step into the weekend after being rained out for 2 days. I left my campsite just before 12 to get in with enough time. You usually go like an hour early, right? We got to the queue, all of us, and the queue was humongous and moving at snail's pace. They did an announcement where they said they're refusing people with bags over A4 size. I don't know what was going on. I don't understand. I couldn't see some of it. It blew my mind how slow this queue was going. So slow that I was in that queue for an hour and I missed Hanabi's set. Didn't even get to the barriers where they, like the little fencing where they nudge everyone across into different lanes. Didn't even get to that point and Hanabi's set had started. And then I got into the actual arena and Hanabi had already finished by 5 minutes. And I was fuming. Of course security's got a job to do. But at that point then, the reason why they were slow is because apparently they were refusing people with bags. It happened to our friend Isaac, who had a rucksack. The rucksack in question was a small backpack, not like a big heavy rucksack, half empty. It had his poncho in it, it had an empty bottle of water in it that he could refill, and I think it had his phone charger in it, and he was refused. But it had nothing in it. They then went and said, oh, actually, no, we're gonna completely get rid of that now. We're not going to enforce that rule anymore. So I said, why was a rule in the first place then? I understand security, I get it, I really, really do. But it obviously wasn't that much of an issue if you could scrap it like an hour later. Obviously it wasn't a problem then, was it? We witnessed a guy walking through security and security chasing him. The guy was carrying a can of liquid death, which he'd obviously purchased from the village or somewhere. It's liquid death. It's the main sponsor, but it's water in a can. Security chased him down and took the can off him. I shit you not, I witnessed this, and other people witnessed this as well. I was like, what the hell is going on? Why? I know, like, it's a sealed can. It's the main sponsor of the event. It's a sealed can. And it's water. Everyone knows it's water. I felt so sorry for that guy because he wasted £3, £2.50 when it was, on that can. Security take it off him, even though it was fucking water. I don't understand how that, like, security needs to get, like, on a consistent level at this festival because it's been a problem a few years. It's always been something. But this was stupid. It was a stupid part this year. Really, it was fucking awful. Another stupid part this year was toilets. Now, there seemed to be a distinct lack of them. And in certain places, there was not enough of them. I don't know what it was, but where the toilets were last year all changed. There used to be that big area near second stage that had disappeared, probably because it was a fucking mop last year. The only other place was up by second stage, where they did have like these these women's urinals, which were like a pole that you squatted with, and that was apparently excellent and really well received. Was it advertised? Was it fuck? I didn't know they were there. People who we camped with who were female presenting didn't even know they were there either. So I was just like, okay, it would have been better to know that was there. Also, Download has this obsession with Portaloos with the ones that are just literally like a hole. So you're pretty much staring into like the brown dragon anytime you go and use one. The quality of facilities at Download have sort of slipped definitely since last year, and definitely since the year before. The water fountains, there was one for every point in the festival. Toilets themselves in the campsites, I noticed that there wasn't even a toilet in Green campsite. There wasn't a toilet there. The closest toilets were in the Village or away in Purple. There was no toilets in Green. I understand that Green was the smallest of campsites, but there wasn't even a few fucking toilets that could have used. I found it really quite frustrating for the Green guys who camped in Green, because either side of them was Eco Camp toilets and Camping Plus toilets, but they didn't have their own, which is the biggest insult you could ever give anybody. Hi, yeah, you're going to camp right here between two other campsites which have better toilet facilities than anybody else in the festival, and you don't get your own. The biggest slap in the face. What a fucking shit show. So toilets, man, they were awful. The focusing on the bad Download is always a hot topic. Everyone focuses on the bad bits. I'm going to get into bands now, because honestly, every band I saw were excellent. That has not been a case at Download for quite a while for me. I saw quite a few bands and on different stages, and they were all brilliant. I feel really sorry for anybody who went to see a band and didn't enjoy them. That's why Download was so good this year for me. There was not a bad act. It's not been like that for a while for me. So with that, I'm going to get into we're going to do blown away, biggest surprise, and then had the most fun act, just because it's super easy. So the biggest surprise, Hylung. Right, so I didn't go see Busted purely because I knew it was going to be crowded, and that third stage looked rough. And honestly, yeah, I could get in with Busted, but I was more like, I want to see what this Hylung has to deliver, because I'd seen it was a bit of a spectacle, and it was something completely different. So I went to watch it. Oh my god, obsessed. What a fucking show. So different. Something that was a bit, I don't know if it was ballsy of Download to put these guys on, like, next to, like, Busted or whatever, but honestly, like, it was so good. I was there blown away the entire time by it. It was like, wow, this is excellent. So much so I spent €90 on one of their hoodies. If you like stuff like that, like the folk, that Germanic, Nordic lore, folklore, and performance art, it was outstanding. And yeah, I guess they blew me away, but also were ones that blew me away that I didn't expect to blow me away, actually. Polyphia blew me away purely for the fact that it's just talent beyond. It's so good to watch. It was just, I got to the front, it was so good to watch. The music was excellent. I didn't really know a lot of their songs, but I was just like, that's a new playlist coming up. And Fall Out Boy. I was a Fall Out Boy fan when I was a lot younger, and, you know, through a little less 16 Candles, Grand Theft Auto, you know, Sugar We're Going Down, that sort of early, like, emo era. And then even through into when they sort of came into that pop sort of era, I really enjoyed them. What I was cautious about with them was what the set list was going to be like, because I had no idea what they were going to play, but I needed them to play their bangers, what I knew. And they went, from the start of their set was their first album, and they just played all their back catalogue. It got to the point where they finished some songs, and I was like, what are they going to play next? And it was another banger. And I was like, they can't play another banger, can they? And it was another banger. I was like, oh my god. I was like, this is not going to stop. And it was back to back awesome songs. The visuals were great. Pete Wentzel on balloons. They had the flying sheep. It just looked excellent. If there's one thing that people, when they saw Fall Out Boy on this list, were like,
oh, you know.
You could easily put them as the best headliner this weekend. They are a full contender for it. And then, obviously, the band I had the most fun at. Band I had the most fun at was probably Limp Bizkit. I can't lie. Limp Bizkit were the most fun. It was wet. I had wellies on, and I was near the front on the right-hand side, and it was just bouncing. There was pits. There was just people moving about. Everyone singing. Yeah, it was only an hour, but it was so good. It was so fun. And even Andy Copin wrote it on his Instagram that they brought out such a good set that they do deserve to headline. Is that kind of alluding to maybe in a few years they'll headline, which I think they absolutely deserve. Limp Bizkit performed to a black curtain behind them, and it was possibly one of the greatest set lists, like most fun I've ever had in a long time. And it reminded me of when I saw them back in 2009 at Download before Korn, and it was like, oh, so good. So with that being said, I realise I've been speaking for quite a while on things. I'm gonna wrap up. I think there's so many good things to say about Download, but everyone likes to say the bad things, and I feel like I have said a lot more bad than I have good. But I still enjoyed it. I still had a really good time. Yes, I've been suffering with the Download flu. I had a really good time. I thought it was possibly one of the best downloads I've been to in a while. Certainly better than a couple of years where I could mention. But for now, peace and love, everyone, from all at Camp Ginster. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for everyone being a part of this. Please like and subscribe to this video, and stick around for more content. We are on TikTok, we're on Instagram, so please go follow us over there too. So peace and love, everyone. Bye-bye. Whoop.